Good morning, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Brunch Reaper podcast. I'm your host, Rosalind Perkins. How's everyone doing? I'm sorry I'm having a late show today. I needed some sleep. Next week is going to be a very busy week for all of us. On Monday, I have the reparations meeting in Boston. Tuesday, I got to train. Wednesday, I got to train. Thursday, I got to train and get ready for um Juneteenth because Thursday is Juneteenth, so we might have two shows. Um, Friday, I'll be going down to Boston. What's going on, Randall? How's everything? We got a great show today, man. We got a great show. I'll actually tell you about it. Today, our show was gonna be the Karen court case, the Karen Reed court case. I will fix the title. The Karen Reed court case and why can't white Americans see white supremacy? So it's and not all white Americans, but most white Americans. The reason how I got this story because I was actually talking to this guy from Dedham, and remember I always used to tell y'all Massachusetts is systematically racist. Um, that's including the people too. The everyday working people, they're systematically racist ideology, if that makes sense. So what I mean is, hold on, all right, there we go. So what I mean is the ideology, how they think, where they seem like, oh well, you know what, DEI should be taken away because everybody should be able to get a fair chance. But I don't think he understands the system that he lives in. So this is why we will be talking about that. I think that's going to be the main topic question. Um, Connecticut and Boston. Yeah, Boston's a little bit worse. Cause Boston always been like that. It been like that since the 40s and 50s. Like people don't understand that. Um, Black history was taken out of Boston schools in the 70s. And technically in Massachusetts, celebrating Christmas is illegal because they never changed the law in Massachusetts. So, so technically Christmas is illegal, you know. But it's one of those laws that like who gives a fuck, you know. Um, but it's a since the Boston Tea Party, yeah, yeah, it has. Most people who came over here on that Mayflower was savage. They were savage. They sent the crazies, the murderers, and the killers over. Well, the murderers and the violators. I call them violators. The reason why I call them violators is because they how they took the land and they came over here for freedom, but they enslaved other people's for their freedom. You know, so it's like taking somebody else's freedom just to get your own freedom. You know, it's weird. Um, but other than that, how's your day, Randall? How you doing, man? Happy Friday. You know, any plans for this weekend? Uh, no, but yeah. Hold on one second. Give me a second, Randall. But yeah, next week is gonna be very busy. Hold on, give me one. I gotta change this. All right, there we go. Live chat. I told a white dude on Mike's TV panel, fuck him in the Mayflower. He sealed on. I might have to use that. Fuck him in this Mayflower he sealed in on. I like that one. Football practice. Ooh man. Hey man, yo, you got any videos that's on YouTube? Yo, I'm gonna put it on my show so we can watch you, man. Watch you get busy. Don't think like I always tell people all the time, don't think this is only about me. So like if y'all have some type of talent or anything, definitely you could send me an email or whatnot and the whole 9 yards. Definitely we will support you, you know. That's how it is. But I got a great video for that one, that main topic. But we're gonna talk about the Karen Reed. If anybody don't know about Karen Reed killed her boyfriend in Dedham, Massachusetts, and it was a retrial like a few months, like 6 7 months ago. The case has been going on already for a month already. It's like the 34th day already. Today was the argument, so it was super dope. Like we talked about it. YouTube games, 2024 Canton Hurricanes, is the name of the video. All right, definitely we're gonna look it up, man. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make a topic question where we can add you in it. Yeah. So yeah, man, yo, we're gonna support you and stuff. Definitely on your football career and stuff, cause this is more than just a show. You know, I will tell you that this is more than just a show. You know, um, it's for all of us. You know, it's to help all of us. If you don't like, that's why I say, yo, if y'all want to talk, y'all can talk. If y'all want to talk crazy. I don't mind. You know. I actually like it. Even when people talk crazy to me, I didn't know I didn't like it. I didn't know I started liking it until the whole situation like a few months ago, you know? Then I'm like, oh, yo, you know what? I like when people talk crazy. If people want to talk crazy, let them talk crazy, you know? This weekend, I think I'm gonna go training tomorrow. I'm gonna train tomorrow from 12 to 2. I'll probably record it, see how I look. But yeah, like when I say I'm gonna have a very busy week this week, it's gonna be super busy. I didn't know my week was gonna be this busy. You know, when I do usually celebrate Juneteenth, it's Juneteenth. You know, I'm at the end. The owner is trying to keep off the field, keep me off the field, trying to keep me off the field. This year, I think he's envious because we are the same age and I can still play. Hey, if anything, try a different team. You know, somebody will appreciate your talent. Yeah, man, yo, you keep yourself up, man. You love the sport. You take the sport serious. So he can't get mad about that because he gave up on the sport. It was his time to pack it up. Let me tell you what's so dope is defining the odds and defining time. Everybody think there's a time limit to everything. No, there's no time limit to anything. You just do what you're supposed to do. You know, um, like I tell people all the time, this shit comes with the territory. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have days when you want to quit, but just don't quit, man. Because you know why? It's your time. You could be like 80 years old, still doing the same thing. If you still feel like it's your time, it's your time. It's shine time. Someone else might uh start a team. Either I'll play or coach up over. Yeah, play a coach. Bill Russell did it. He did it in Boston. That's why I always say I consider him the greatest basketball player of all time. He's on my wall. It's not because he was played for the Celtics. It's because all the things that he defined. You know, Like the St. Louis Spirits, they didn't want Bill Russell at the time because it was a racist state. But Red Archback said, "I don't care as long as if he can play, I want him on my team. I want to win. He cared about winning." And this is why I always tell people all the time, Red should have got a fucking statue. Red Archback used to smoke cigars and shit, like after every game and shit. That's how dope he was, you know. And we could be like, oh yeah, there was only 18s, but yo, the shit that Bill Russell was doing is crazy. He played against people 5'10". Yeah. Who Bill Russell? Funny thing about it, Bill Russell was like 6'8". He wasn't even like 7 feet. He was like 6'8". He was like a small forward playing center. He used to get like, yeah. I'm gonna read his achievements. He had less than he had 14,522 points. He had 4,100 rebound. I mean assists, and he had 21,620 rebounds. He's a one time. He's a 11-time NBA champion, 5-time MVP champion. He's a 12-time All Star, NBA All Star MVP. He's a 3-time All Star first player, 4-time NBA rebounding champion. That's Bill Russell, you know. And Bill Russell was jumping over people and stuff. That's how crazy he was. And he was a player. He was the first player coach. You know, so shout out to Bill Russell and RIP because he passed away like 3 years ago, man. I cried when he passed away. Cause growing when I started playing basketball, everybody looked at Michael Jordan, you know, Scottie Pippen, Charles Barkley, and them. I looked at Bill Russell. Bill Russell always has been my favorite player. That's why when I was playing basketball, all I wanted to do was grab rebounds and throw the ball, or just run real fast, do a fast break, score, boom. You know, I didn't really get who's it. Mike was the best player, flat out. Um, in his era, yes. Do I think he's the greatest of all time? I don't think would not without Scottie Pippen. He would have won championships, but I don't think he would have won six. Because don't forget, he didn't start winning until he had Scottie Pippen on his team. And remember when Michael Jordan got caught with all the scamming shit that he was doing in the NBA? Um, the Chicago Bulls was still ranked one. They still made it to the Eastern Finals and lost. So it's not like they sucked without Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan always had a team around him, you know? It's just Michael Jordan has that switch where he can just turn it on and just like flat out just annihilate people. Um, I think Michael Jordan is the greatest one-on-one player. I think LeBron James is the best overall player. And when I mean by the best overall player is because if you're trying to build a team, you would want a LeBron James. You wouldn't want a Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan doesn't pass. Michael Jordan don't make nobody better. You know, so that's what's different. And don't forget, in those era, they just probably had one, maybe a two superstars. In this era, there's like three or four superstars on teams. Don't forget, LeBron James mostly his whole career had role players. You know, LeBron James just started having all stars on his team a few years ago. Probably like we could even say 6 years ago. You know, well even longer than that. Probably like 10 years ago. Um, I used to be a LeBron hater. I'm not gonna lie, and I tell people this all the time. I used to be a LeBron hater. I used to think he was overrated. I used to think, put the weed down. Yeah, the Stephen A. voice. Yo, the funny thing, I haven't smoked weed in like 5 years. So I don't even know. Yo, when I used to get high, I used to get high, high. Because I used to smoke the best of the best. When you smoking the best of the best, um, it, you can't go down, you can't go any lower, man. I always tell people that. I always smoke the best. But when somebody gave me trash, I was like, you know what? I don't want to smoke anymore. Cause they locked up my weed dealer. It was a female too. She had a whole company and everything. She was supporting Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. Like, yo, she had people driving there dropping off weed, like in all those states. And she went to jail for like 5 years. Yeah, it was dope, man. I cried, man, when I see these people take all the weed and stuff. Then like 3 months later, they opened up dispensaries. So I think that I felt like that was a kick in the nuts. Um, yeah, just situations like that, man. I always think Michael Jordan was. I always thought Michael Jordan was dope. It's because my father's name is Jordan. And all I wear is Jordans and Coach sneakers. I probably have like one or two Nikes, but I do got Pumas as well. I got one pair of Pumas. They're the Black History Pumas. Um, I don't wear them because they got Pan African colors on it, and I don't think that's Black History. I'll show you. Actually, let me show y'all them now. Give me a second. I should have kept up with them, but I got sneaker clean them, so I will fix them. See, these are the Black History. No, these were the 1968 Black History. These are the ones you could get for Black History Month, like 3 or 4 years ago. I paid like 100 and some change for these. Suede. Um, so I fuck with the sneakers and stuff. Homie probably would have liked those. Yeah, he would have liked those. Cause they're Pan African. You know, they got the Pan African colors. Give me a second. Let me fix the camera. There we go. Yeah, he would have loved those, man. I'm like I wear those like probably once or twice a year. Hold on, do I? Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, testing. All right, there we go. Um, I do want to say one thing though. I'm just testing something. Uh, Give me 1 second. I hear no noise. Mm, I'm just looking for the noise. I screwed something up, everyone. Just give me like 30 seconds. All right, let me try it again. Fuck it, I'll do it later on. Did you know Adidas and Puma were started by the KKK people? I didn't even know that. Thank you for telling me that. I didn't even know that. Nah, I didn't even know that. That's crazy. You know, hold on, let me fix the lighting, everyone. Yeah, but yeah, that shit is crazy, man. I never even knew that. Yo, why is this? Give me a second, everyone. All right, I think that's perfect. Um, yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah, it's a little bit better now. Let's see if I turn the light on, it's better. All right. Know what it is? I think I'm missing the lighting. Give me 1 second. All right, hold on. I gotta fix this lighting, man. All them around the shoes, they had 3Ks. I never knew that. British Knights also also back in the 90s. They had three Ks. I didn't even know that. Jesus Christ. You can't trust anything anymore, man. Jesus Christ. You know? Yo, it looks like my joint is mad weird. You know? I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is today. I never seen it before. It just feels like my lighting's off. I don't know. Let me see. Hold on, let me turn this light off and see. I'm thinking it's the camera, man. Hey, what's going on, DJ X1? Shout out to you. I'm just fixing the lighting, man. I don't know. I feel like it's weird today. Or right. Think that's doable. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I think that's doable. Uh, is my God, what it do? Is do look like kind of? Yeah, it looks kind of funny today, man. I don't know what it is. I think I want to turn it off. Yeah, man. Hold on. That one looks a little bit dirty. Damn, you all see my nostrils and everything? It's like this light right here. I think I want to turn this one off. All right, that one it looks a little bit better now. Um, I do want to change the lighting thing. Yo, I had the remote for yesterday. There we go. All right, this look a little bit better now. Yeah, this looks a little bit better now. Thank y'all for y'all patience. But what's going on, DJ X1? Me and Randall were just talking about you got leftover candy and yeah, me and Randall was talking about who's the best basketball player of all times. I told Mike I think Michael Jordan is the greatest single player. Like by Michael Jordan himself, he's the greatest of all time. He could take anybody out. But I think LeBron James is the overall greatest player. Like he makes teams better. Michael Jordan don't make people better, you know? And that's just my opinion. You might have a better opinion. It's just you look at LeBron. LeBron can make a team who's like 30, NBA contender. Michael Jordan can't do that because Michael Jordan doesn't pass. He doesn't really pass like that, you know? LeBron, he makes everybody better, you know? He don't forget, Tristan Thompson got a great contract because of LeBron James. I disagree. I think Kobe Bryant, the best single player. You could throw that in there. You can make that. You can make that that argument because Michael Jordan and Kobe are basically the same person. You know, big brother, little brother. You know, I will say that big brother, little brother. Um, they've both got the same demeanor. They really don't give a fuck about anybody but basketball. So yeah, I could see that. Like there's similarities. Like I think Kobe Bryant's a better mid player than Michael Jordan. Like shooter. Oh yeah. LeBron's the GOAT, man. I gotta say LeBron's the GOAT. We have to say it, and especially if he wins another championship, it's arguably he's the greatest. You know, half of his career he went to the championship. His half of his career, he played 21 years, about to make it 22. He played in three different eras. So it's just Michael Jordan couldn't do that because he was scamming. He was shedding numbers and stuff. That's why he played baseball. And I have to say that because he actually did do it. You know, That was the whole reason of him going to baseball, you know? So wait until shit died down. Michael Jordan was coming back. He wasn't act. We can't act like Michael Jordan was not gonna come back. Michael Jordan was coming back. Fuck around and find out. Yeah, Michael Jordan was coming back. He was just fucking around with numbers. He was technically the Pete Rose of fucking basketball. You know, you let the meter sway your view. Um, I don't forget. I used to be a LeBron hater, man. I used to hate LeBron. You know, until I seen how great he really was. You know, and the reason why, don't forget, the reason why LeBron, everybody hated LeBron because he went to Miami and he didn't want to take that contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I hated him for that shit, man. You know. But I understand it. Business is business because if they wanted to trade him, they would have traded him. He did the smartest thing. He didn't waste his youth where people didn't want to develop at. You know, LeBron did make history. He's the first player to play with his son on the same team. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Then he played with other players' kids, you know? Don't forget, he played against Kmart and he was playing against Kmart's kid. Kevin, what's his name? Kenyon Martin's son. He played against Kenyon Martin's son. He played with what's the other motherfucker's name? He played with quite a few people's sons. Tim Hard no, he never played with Tim Hardaway. Um I think he played against Gary Payton. Yeah, he played with I think with Gary Payton. You know, he's the one who got was he the one who got Gary Payton a championship? Yeah, I think he did. You know, it's his size, and don't forget he takes care. Oh, he's bigger than 6'6". That man was like 6'8", 6'9". LeBron James is too big for his position. He might have one championship. If LeBron's, he might have. Yeah, LeBron James is just too big for his position. He's like 6'9", 6'8". Don't forget when he was playing with Kevin Love and them, he was taller than his fucking center. And he played it again. Gary Payton. So yeah, yeah, you'd be surprised, man. This dude played 21 years. Some of these kids is 19 years old, 20 years old, watching this dude when they were like 5 or 6. Now they playing with them or against them. That shit's crazy, man. Like I remember watching LeBron James come out when he was in high school. I was in high school at the time. They was like, "Yo, LeBron James is about to be the next big thing." Oh, if he was 6'6", yeah, he might be a maybe a one shot championship. Yeah, they will have to change his position though. They will probably have to make him a shooting guard. But I don't think he will fit good with the shooting guard position, and because he's not really a good shooter. He can shoot. He can make shots. He can shoot threes. He can shoot mid shots, but he's not really good at it. You know, he makes them sometimes. He misses them sometimes. But when you need it, he'll get it for you. You know. Um, I do want to tell people this. LeBron James has given a lot to the league. He's a great public figure. You never catch any type of scandals with him or anything, you know. I have to say he's the goat, man. You know, I'm a Bill Russell fan. I always have been a Bill Russell fan. But now we're talking about, and I'm just biased with Bill Russell. I think Bill Russell is my goat. He's my greatest of all times. But if we're talking about basketball and what's really important, LeBron James, he pulls in rebounds, he's pulling assists. Like he's in top in all of those assists, rebounds, and points. So it's just like has a longevity career, has given back. Like it's you can really not say anything bad about him. You cannot say the motherfucker got extra kids and stuff that people don't know. It's he's great on the field. He's great on the court. He teaches people. He doesn't hold all that information, and he's like, "Yo, this is how you get better. This is what you do. This is what I did." You know, he helped people make money. It's just he got his. We can't say that about Michael Jordan. The only thing we can say, Michael Jordan got Jordans in a prison. So that's it. It's just Michael Jordan. He's great in basketball. He was a fucking assassin. He was a killer on on the court. But at the end of the day, don't forget, Michael Jordan had probably the greatest supporting team of all time. I think he had the greatest supporting team better than the Phil Jackson's Lakers. And they won three peats as well. It's just LeBron put so much into it. He did with that crap. Yeah. He was made also. Oh yeah. Did he? Yeah, that was his boy, man. But let me tell you something. Is I'll say this: Diddy's a piece of shit, yeah, but I don't think Diddy's supposed to be in jail though. That's the crazy part. That's different. Michael Jordan, that has to be with prisons. Yeah, it's a business. You know, it's $1 billion business. You know, prison. Yeah, you're getting funded by the government. You never miss a payment. The government's always gonna pay you for keeping these motherfuckers in prison. Yeah. Um, like it is what it is. It's That's what comes with the territory of business, man. Money doesn't have no friends or no family or someone it loves. You know, it's just it is what it is when it comes to certain business. You know, so we just have to accept it for what it is. Um, Prison. I'll say this about prison. I don't think they should call it a correctional center because it institutionalized people when they get out. Only the greats, only the greats. What's the word? The greats can overcome it. The reason why I said that only the greats can overcome it because at the end of the day, most people go back. You know, it's a revolving door for most people because at the end of the day, most people don't have a choice to do but go back to what they were doing. Um, I think people should be careful. I think people. I do people. I think people should be careful on what people who they like and dislike. Oh, that's not the same, Michael Jordan. That has to do with prison. It's a business, you know. So I don't look at Michael Jordan as a bad person. I just look at him as a businessman. A businessman. I mean, like I said, money don't love anybody. It's just this what comes with the territory, and they accept it. The money accepts it. So as a businessman, you're not supposed to have no type of feeling. You know, that's why the greatest drugs dealers are the big businessmen. The best businessmen are drug dealers because they can adapt to anything. They know how to act in a room full of other like savages and vultures and stuff. You know, because those type of people, you have to observe people. You have to observe the bullshit. If I'm kind of making sense. Why you think what's his name? Leon Cohen's he could be around all those those drug addicts, fucking killers and drug dealers and stuff like that because he's a businessman. He has to know what sets them off, what they like, what they dislike, what he can do, what he can't do. That's why him and Dame Dash always bump heads. Dame Dash was trying to give back to his people so he can leave a legacy for the black community. Leon Cohen didn't give a fuck about anybody. He just cared about making money. You know, that's why I always say, yo, I think Leon Cohen was a piece of shit. Clive Davis is a piece of shit. They didn't want Young Thug in jail because Young Thug brings in money. Young Thug's he brings in he brings in a lot of money. If it's not fashion, it's music. If it's not music or fashion, it's influential influences. You know, influence is way more. I always tell people all the time, influence is way more powerful than money. Money can get you anything, but influence can get you money. You know, and without even knowing that you're getting money. You know, like I say, it comes with the territory of business. When I took a marketing class, I had to understand that. Like I'm actually studying the shit day trading. Day traded is like, you buy some stock, you pull it out when it starts to go down. It's weird, or you have some shit that, excuse me, you have some shares for like 3 or 4 months or something. You leave it in and you just keep it there, and it's a whole weird type of a form of getting paid. So I'm starting to study that shit now. My uncle's showing me, and I got a few things that I'm looking at right now. I can't tell you because I don't know YouTube's copyrights, so I'm not gonna tell you. If you would want to know, just email me and I'll tell you what I'm using. Um, so yeah, like you'd be surprised, man. So like what I've been doing is I just been observing how it goes ups and downs and why it go up and down, and it's a weird like a situation. Give me a second, everyone. Yeah, so I've been watching it. The joint that I had today. Yo, what's going on, Jeff? Shout out to Jeff 131. But yeah, yeah, business is it's a weird form of shit, man. Um, I always tell people if I ever go back, I probably would have went to the army. I would have went into the military, and just start shooting people. You know, yeah, it's just that's what I would do. You know, it just as I say, it comes with the territory of certain things. Then I'll go back and become a businessman or whatnot. Uh, yeah, my uncle's starting to teach me how to do day trading and stuff like that. So it's dope. Like, I'm gonna be doing this. I'm gonna be like streaming soon. Hold on. Do you watch kickboxing? Here and there. It depends. If you talk about UFC, I do watch that. But kickboxing, like a promotion, here and there. I do watch UFC somewhat. Are you gonna be watching the Usman fight tomorrow? I think Buckley might take Usman. Yeah, I think Usman might lose again. I think, and if he lose, I think he's gonna retire. Cause that's gonna be four straight that he lost, 3 or 4. Cause don't forget he lost against Leon twice. He lost against Kamsar, and if he lose against this guy, that'll be the fourth time he lost. Glory 100. It's tomorrow morning. Oh, really? Definitely, I'm gonna be watching that shit on the illegal channels. So yeah, I'll watch some Glory. Hey, yo, you watch bare knuckle boxing? But yeah, I will watch Glory since you said it. What time does it start? Cause I got a train tomorrow. I got wrestling training tomorrow, so it's just I told him I was gonna come back Tuesday, man. I didn't come back Tuesday. I was too tired. Cause I be telling these motherfuckers, yo, I'm an activist. I'm trying to figure out shit. It's just like, yo, this is gonna be my first time going to this activism thing, so I gotta bring a notebook and just start writing down stuff. Yeah. Yo, you watch that dude, Lorenzo Hunt? Did he come back yet? Cause I know he dislocated his arm or something like that, or a discus or something. He's lit. That dude's lit. Lorenzo Hunt. I think that's his name. They call him the Juggernaut. Yeah. Yeah, they kicked what's his name out. Something Perry out. Mike Perry, I think. They kicked him out. You know. I remember he tried to fight he was trying to fight what's my man's name? Michael Jaw White. Michael Jaw White's too fucking big and he trains with UFC fighters. Like he trains with like John Jones and shit tomorrow at night. Yeah, I'll have time to watch it. Yeah, I'll watch it definitely. You know, like I said, yeah, that shit comes with the territory though. Yeah, I'll be watching it. Glory, because I haven't watched it in a while, but I will watch it since you told me, Jeff. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. But did y'all see Sinners yet? Did y'all any of y'all see Sinners? Yo, that was a good fucking movie, man. That's some movie that Jason Jordan Peele would have put out. You know, this motherfucker from Black Panthers did it, and it was oh man. Like I've been telling people, yo, 2025. I might do a show tomorrow. Talk, and we're gonna talk. Just talk. We're gonna talk about all the shit that been happening in 2025. Like, yo, all this shit is crazy. The Drake and fucking Kenyan. Yes, I wasn't too impressed. That shit. Do you like subliminal stuff? Like subliminal movies? I didn't get. I didn't get the beginning. Um. So the beginning was basically his father was warning him, and if you didn't see it, you might not want to listen. So it was about his father telling him like, "Yo, be careful with the music that you put out because they consider that devil music back in the day, devil worshiping music." And the reason why it was people always consider certain things devil music because Lucifer was the angel of music. He was very powerful. When you listen to it, it gets into your soul. The some parts were weird too. Which part was weird? Cause that part was just telling him that like, yo, be careful with the music that you put out because it's the devil's music. The devil, like I always tell people all the times, the devil gives blessings too. He just when he wants to collect, he's gonna collect. Ain't nothing for, ain't nothing for free. If it's for free, you should be worried. If it's free, you need to be worried. You know. Yeah, just tell me which part is weird. I'll explain it to you. It's just the beginning was super dope because the whole vampires. Um. So the vampires. Okay. There's two things. There's two ways you can think of it. The vampires was considered like liberals. You know, the liberals like, oh yeah, we're all the same, man. We're fighting for the same rights as we are and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you got to do this, 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 and that. So what these vampires was doing was saying like, yo, I'm trying to start a whole world where we're all equal. We're all equal. We don't have to go through nothing. All you have to do is let me bite you. Let me suck your blood and turn you into a vampire, and you're one of us. We all as one. Did the three vampires need an invitation? Yeah, cause those back in the days, if you ever, are you from down south? If you're from down south, you ever heard when like your grandparents always say like, "Yo, you always invite people. You gotta be careful who you invite in because you might invite the devil in." That was what. That's why you had to invite them because that was the symbolic way of us back then down south saying like, "Yo, be careful who you invite into your spaces or into your house because you might be inviting the wrong people in." That's why when the guy's like, "Yo, aren't you gonna invite me in?" The girl's like, "Yo, you're big as fuck. Why aren't you just not coming in here?" And she was a hoodoo lady. She was a hoodoo lady. Yeah, so your grandparents always say, yo, be careful who you invite into your house. Be careful who you bring into your house. That's why. You don't know who you're bringing into your house. It was an old saying that we used to say back in the days. So that was the whole symbolic thing about it. They were inviting vampires in the house, but the only way they could come into your house into if you invite them in. So that's what happened. Like then you look at the girl who was half black, but she can pass her as white, and you could look at the hoodoo lady. The half white and half black lady, she was already a part of the family because they knew who she was black. They already knew about her background and stuff and why she did what she did. She loved that guy to death where she waited for him. He gave her everything, but he was just no good. Like you can even look at Smokes and Stacks. Smokes, the one who goes out with the hoodoo lady. He was a great father, great person, but he was a piece of shit. He was he was bad at business. You know, but the person who was a piece of shit to women and stuff, womanizer, he was really good at business. They were very opposites. You know, that's why when the girl bit him, he stayed with her. They both got what they wanted. You know, he gets to move on and be successful, and she got her man. She got the man she wanted. She just had to bite. She got bit. You know, that's why it's yeah it's a best thing you do. You got to watch the movie probably like twice. I watched it first and I was like, yo, this shit is fucking crazy. I was like, but I did say, yo, this movie was fucking good. Cause you got to look at it. We haven't seen good movies like this in a while. Like we haven't seen a great movie. We haven't seen a movie like Sinners in a while. Like Us and Get Out and like what was that other fucking stupid movie that I didn't like with Kiki Palmer? With the aliens and shit, they were taking pictures. Nope. I didn't like that movie, but I understood it. It was alright. It was mediocre to me. Yeah. So back in those days in Mississippi, her mother and father would have been killed because you couldn't be in no interracial relationships, especially in Mississippi. You know. Yeah, and also too, if you ever have a problem, just write the Sinners in, and people will tell you about the movie Sinners. Tariq Nasheed has a theory on it. I have a theory on it. Did I even talk about it? I don't know if I talked about it, but I talked about it. I like the movie. I think it's probably the best movie of this year. You know, and I seen Destination Bloodline. That was dope, but nobody. It's not adding up to the Sinners. The Sinners have everything. It had racism in it. It had vampires where they were like liberals. Like if you ever look at it, if you ever look at the mannerisms, the vampires were liberals. If you kind of look at the whole situation of it, you know, they want to bring everybody together and stuff like that. They want to, what's the example? They want to bring everybody together. They want to be like, oh yeah, we're together. We all as one. Color doesn't matter. But they're trying to get something out of you. They were trying to steal what those vampires was trying to do. They were trying to steal all their visions, their musical experiences, everything. That's why they were biting them and stuff. They were stealing all their experiences of life. Why you think they wanted Sammy? Sammy, he was a greeter. If you don't know what a greeter is like cuz I have an uncle that's a greeter. When you play music, you can feel it like those type of people can feel what's going on in the future before the future even happened. They can predict the future when it already happened. They can predict what happened in the past. They can feel visions and stuff from the past. You know, they could tap into the ancestors. You know, so that was the deep thing about Sammy. You know, but I enjoyed it. I watched it probably like 4 times already. I only want to watch Final Destination Bloodline because Tony's Day. Yeah, R.I.P. to yeah Tony. I mean Tony Todd. Yo, he was great, man. He was my favorite. Yo, he did a great Sandman. I remember when I was young, I watched Sandman and I cried because yo, hearing his fucking backstory. Yo, if you know there's an origin of that shit, like why did they cut off his hand? Like in real life, there was a that shit is based off of something. It was this guy, I forgot the guy's name. He was a slave. He fell in love with this white woman. They were having sex and stuff. So the community came and yo, me too. I can't. When does that come out, man? I want to watch that movie. Oh, let me finish telling you about the Candyman. So he was a slave and he was fucking around with this white girl, and they caught him, and the community came, um, and they were beating the shit out of him, and they cut off his hand. But the reason why they cut off his hand because he was a painter, so they cut off his painting hand, and they burnt him alive and like beat him, sodomized him. They did all that freaky nasty shit to him. The honey and shit. I think that was a little bit extra that they put on, but I actually think that did happen, but I have no proof of it. But that is a true tale, black folks tale that somebody was telling. You know, so it's deep, man. That Sandman shit is like most of this shit, yo, if you ever notice, most of the scary movies that people make and stuff like slashes and like even like far out shit, those are all like old stories and shit. Like some are myths, some are like real stories. Like I'll give you another one. Let me see. Let me think of another one. Um There's Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger, the reason why they killed Freddy Krueger, it wasn't that he was abusing the kids. It was because Freddy Krueger was a child molester. So they burnt him alive and stuff like that. And he was tormenting kids, cutting them up, and they were coming back. Some were coming back missing. Some kids had scratches on their back of like some type of weapon and stuff. So they ran up into his house and they chased him. And he ran out and ran into this building and they burnt the place alive. Like the whole neighborhood did that shit to him. Elm Street neighborhood, yeah. That's why they were saying, yo, they were putting kids on drugs and saying like, yo, they didn't know what was going on. Or who, why do they have these dreams? And he's like, yo, I'm going to set revenge on all of y'all because I didn't do it. And he did do it. It's just he didn't want to admit that he was a fucking monster. Who else? There's that one. Pinocchio, that was a mythological story. Pinocchio was a fucking demon. Like he was, I wouldn't say a demon, but he was a mischievous. He was doing foul shit to people and stuff, and the community grabbed him up and hung him. He was a liar. He was a thief. Yo, he was not a good person. He did a lot of fucked up shit to people, so they hung him. Yeah, just look all that shit up. The origin of certain things, yo, you look up, you be like, yo, what the fuck? I didn't know these people were killers. Even like some certain Disney shit. Certain Disney shit they got some dark secrets to that shit. I'm gonna do a show with dark secrets of cartoons and stuff. Like, yo, if you ever remember that show back in the days, Ed, and Eddie. Tell you that was in the night. Oh yeah, he was. It's the clown was a demon of some sort. Yeah. Oh, you talking about it? Yeah, it the clown. Yeah, he was like some type of demon or some type of some evil entity. Pennywise. Yeah. Hello, George. Yeah, that nigga's crazy. Yo, you'd be surprised. You got that one. You got let me tell you what's the craziest one I heard. Ed, and Eddie. So if y'all don't know who Ed, and Eddie was, it was like a no. The Rugrats. That's the craziest dark tales I heard was the Rugrats. Phil and Lil, one so they wasn't really twins. One had an imagination. It was that one. Chucky, he was a schizophrenic. Let me see if I can find that. I'll do this shit real fast, and you know what? We'll watch the Karen Reed. Give me a second. We'll watch the Karen Reed joint. Dark Star. All right, right here.
Very spacious. Sorry, we just saw Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and we are very excited.
We're gonna do that one. We're gonna do this one real fast and
theory. Travelers, ready for another nostalgia trip back to the past? Hop in, because in today's video, we are traveling back to the Rugrats era. Except this isn't going to be about how awesome of a TV show Rugrats was. No, today we are going through the disturbing Angelica theory.
I run away from home and he's happy. Oh no!
Some of you may have heard of this theory before, but we guarantee that you haven't heard all parts of it. And don't say we didn't warn you. This isn't for the faint of heart. Remember Rugrats, the show about talking babies? It was one of the first shows on Nickelodeon when it came on air in 1991. It turned out a smash hit as the audience couldn't get enough of Tommy leading Chucky, Phil, Lil, and Kimmy into living out their imaginations and going on adventures that stressed the life out of the adults in the
What's
show.
going on, Kwame?
The first iteration of Rugrats was on air for 13 years, making it the longest running show on Nickelodeon at the time. Its showcase of talking babies won the show lots of fans. This is one reason it picked up lots of industry awards, numbering more than 20. It has also become a big franchise, spawning 2 spin-off series, TV specials and crossovers, 3 movies, books, and of course, lots of merchandise, the dream of every studio executive. With the amount of affection and appeal for Rugrats out there, it's easy to see why Nickelodeon did a reboot of the show in 2021. For now, it's only on Paramount Plus, a streaming service from the studio giants. It's already confirmed for another season, so our adorable
He's
babies
already
will
on that
continue with
bullshit,
their adventures
everyone.
for at least
Pay
another
attention.
year. As usual with shows like these, there are lots of fan theories propounded about the characters. One of the most well-known theories involves Angelica Pickles, Tommy's 3-year-old elder cousin. It seeks to provide the reason why Angelica mistreats the babies and is the way she is. You know, selfish, manipulative, and thinking it's all about her. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We all know someone like Angelica. The theory is quite disturbing though. It claims Tommy and the other babies didn't exist, as they were figments of Angelica's imagination. And to make matters worse, they're all dead too. Yup, dead babies. The theory begins with the death of Angelica's real mother from a heroin overdose. Her drug addiction affected Angelica, making her a crack baby, which would definitely explain her eccentricities and craziness. She got neglected by her father, Drew, and her stepmom, Charlotte, who's all about business, making money, and sponging off Drew's money. So Angelica created the babies to keep her company. Yeah, crazy, right? Her doll, Cynthia, with jacked up hair and a tattered orange dress, is said to be a representation of her biological mother during her hospital stay before her death. Did we mention that this theory is disturbing? So now we have a poor kid who grew up with neglect and symptoms of drug dependence. How could things get any worse? Well, as mentioned, Angelica created the imaginary babies based on real babies who died or were taken away in different circumstances. Tommy was stillborn. This made Stu, his father, go into overdrive making toys and kitty stuff, trying to compensate for his son. Not sure if you remember that one popular scene, which is now a meme actually, where Dee Dee comes into the kitchen at 4 in the morning asking Stu what he's doing, to which he replies, making chocolate pudding. And she's like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding? And he replies,
because I've lost control of my life.
We've all been there, let's admit it. But pairing it with this theory gives it an uncomfortable explanation as to the motive behind his 4 a.m. chocolate pudding adventures. Is it a middle-aged man generally unhappy with his life? Or a man grappling with the loss of his stillborn son? You tell me. Chucky is said to have died in a car accident with his mother, causing his father, Chaz, to fall into depression and become a nervous wreck after the incident. To snap out of his depression and get better, he visited Paris, obeying that popular maxim, to see Paris and die. Trying to take advantage of the city's reputation as one of the most romantic places on Earth, he tried to ignite a relationship with a lady, Coco, but she turned out to be a gold digger, so it didn't work. Afterwards, Chaz met a Japanese woman, Kira, while still in Paris. She was a sex worker and a drug addict who had a daughter, Kimmy. Kimmy was one of the babies who came much later in the show. The theory further states that Kimmy was taken away by the French authorities after Kira's drug addiction came to light. But things turned out alright as Kira came to America with Chaz, leaving Kimmy behind. She got a green card, making her an American citizen. She and Chaz lived happily ever after, even though she never overcame her addiction. Super romantic, right? And at least Kimmy didn't die, she just stayed in France. So we have one good thing happening in this theory. Angelica must have heard stories of Kimmy from Kira, and hey, presto, Kimmy came into being from Angelica's imagination. But let's talk about the twins now.
To get started in data analytics, you don't need previous experience.
I never
or
heard
a
this
degree.
one,
The
but
Google Data Analytics Certificate.
this is super dope.
What happened to them?
Hey, Kwame,
Well,
we'll
the
get into
DeVilles,
that.
The Pickles' neighbors apparently had an abortion, and since Angelica didn't know the baby's sex, as it had never been too early to check, she imagined them as twins, a boy and a girl. Pretty clever if you ask me. Ironically, Dill is the only one thought to be real among the babies. Why? Angelica doesn't get any reaction from him, as he never talks. Unlike the others, this leads her to dislike Dill and take it out on him by hitting him, since she couldn't differentiate him from her creations. Yup, pretty messed up. Remember Susie Carmichael, Angelica's neighbor, friend, and rival, who's always defending the babies from Angelica's wrath? It's said that Susie knew about Angelica's fantasy, played along to make her feel good. Plus, they're kids. It's common to make up stories in your head and play them out in real time. And it kinda explains how Susie was a friend and rival at the same time. She was the only one who played along with Angelica's imagination, but she took the wrong side in the imaginational creation. She sided with the babies, not Angelica, making Angelica not like her at some points. But alas, Susie was the only one who went along with this made-up story, so Angelica had to like her to some degree, since she had slim pickings when it came to friends. And the theory still extends to one of the spin-off series, Rugrats All Grown Up. Remember how
Hold on,
Angelica
Kwame,
was
hold
always
on.
hitting
We're gonna
Dill, who
start
never
this
talks?
soon, all right?
Looks like it caused Dill to have a brain hemorrhage, which affected his mental development. This made him act weird and wear hats. It also turned him into a social outcast as almost everybody avoided him, according to the theory. Angelica was also diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia. This could be found in her constant abuse of narcotics as a teenager. One reason for this could be that she didn't want to be without her imaginary creations, the babies who had become teenagers. Angelica considered them her only companions in what she felt was a judgmental world. It was also her own way of dealing with her guilt about how Dill turned out. Her drug addiction, schizophrenia, and personality made people shun her, making her obsess more on the imaginary babies. Her last days were said to have been spent at the back of the school cafeteria playing with her imaginary friends before her passing from a drug overdose when Rugrats All Grown Up was canceled. Susie is said to have arranged her funeral. It motivated her into becoming a psychologist, and Susie and Dill lived happily ever after. And Kimmy too, except she was in France, hopefully with a healthy family at this point. The end.
Not exactly. It's just me and my mommy, and we live in Paris.
Yep, that's it. That's the theory. If you think it's crazy, you're not alone. In fact, many people really believe this theory, and you've got to admit, at first glance, it looks solid, logical, and well thought out. But what do the creators say about it? The creators, Arlene Klasky, Paul Germain, and Gabar Chupo, must have seen the influence the Angelica theory was having on our collective memories. So thankfully, they stepped in to debunk it. Basically, and quite simply, they stated in an interview that many people believe in the Angelica theory, but it is not true. Straight to the point, if you ask me. If you're like us and extremely invested in this theory, you've probably made it this far in the video. Congrats, you want to know more.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I heard some of that thing. I didn't hear this one where they said she had an imagination. I heard Phil and Will was an they wasn't a real. I heard damn, what did I hear about Tommy Pickles? I don't remember, but yeah. I heard Ed and Eddie. One was real, but two of them weren't real. Those was his imagination. Because I guess his brother used to beat up on him and stuff like that. So the only friends he had was the ones he imagined. So this story I heard the same thing with Ed and Eddie. It's a weird story, man. I will say that. But yo, let's start the show. Karen Reed. I hope y'all been keeping up to date with her. The bitch is crazy. I think she did it. I'm gonna be personally honest. I think she did it. All jokes aside, her and her boyfriend was having a hard time. They were going through some shit, and I think she ran him over out of rage. You know, she sounds like she's a narcissistic type of person, so I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I was talking to this guy in Dedham. That's how I got that other question by I'll answer Kwame's question real fast. Why would white people see white supremacy? We need solutions. Black Americans gotta stop crying. This the white man's country. Hey Kwame, he's already starting. He's always talking about somebody's white country. Yo, Kwame, what country is black in Africa? Without the minority running the country? Answer that question. But we're gonna jump into the Karen Reed joint. Like I said, I think she did do it. We're not gonna watch all of it because it's like almost an hour and a half long.
stopping TikTok ads in under 15 minutes. And to do this,
there was no collision. There was no collision. There was no collision. I want to take a minute to start off with thanking you. I want to thank you for your attention. I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for your diligence. This is not an easy undertaking. Most of all, I want to thank you for your courage, because courage is what this moment demands. Not just to listen, but to stare directly at injustice and say, not here, not now, not on our watch. That's what you're being asked to do. Stare down injustice. I want to start with a simple truth. You folks, not us, nobody else in the courtroom, you folks are the last line of defense. The last line of defense between an innocent woman and a system that has tried to break her, that falsely accused her, that tried mightily to bury the truth. This case was corrupted from the start. It was corrupted by biases and conflicts and personal loyalties that you heard about. And most fatally, it was corrupted by a lead investigator whose misconduct infected every single part of this case from the top to the bottom. In our opening comments to you a few weeks ago, we told you what to watch for. We warned you what to watch for. We begged you what to watch for. Watch for the physical evidence. Pay attention to the medical facts. Pay attention to the science and the physics. But also pay attention to the integrity, the very essence, the integrity of the investigation. But you also saw something during the course of the trial that none of us might have expected, something that should sadden us, something that maybe would anger us. On full display, you saw the lengths to which some police officers will go to protect their own at the expense of the rest of us, at the expense of Karen Reed, an innocent woman. Before we examine the evidence in the case, which we will do, we need to understand the very foundation of the entire system of justice in which we operate. It's the bedrock on which this entire system is built. Reasonable doubt. This isn't just a technicality, and it's not a slogan. It's a constitutional shield that protects the innocent and prevents the government from punishing without proof. The Commonwealth has the high burden to prove every single element of every single charge beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. As I said, those powerful words are not just some legal jargon. They're your mandate, they're your obligation, they're your community's protection against injustice. In our system of justice, Karen Reed sits here today, presumed innocent.
Yo, she looks so guilty. I'm gonna say that shit right there. Like, she looked mad guilty. She looked like she killed more than one person. You know, and I'm not trying to like demonize her, but nah, she looked like a killer. I think she did that. A guy told me she didn't do that. The cops set her up. I ain't trying to hear that bullshit. I want to see her in them shiny shackles.
Cloaked in the presumption of innocence. That presumption is not fragile. It doesn't just disappear because there's a charge or a badge or a theory. That presumption stands firm unless and until the Commonwealth clears that high bar, the highest bar the law provides, proof beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. That means at the end of this case, at the end of the trial, you think about one or more of the charges, you think, you know what, maybe that's true. It might be true. Then you vote not guilty. If you think it's possibly true or probably true, your vote must be not guilty. If someone among you thinks it's likely true or even very likely to be true, your vote is not guilty.
Yo, I think she did it. And the reason why I think she did it is because, like, yo, they were, like I said, they were having hard problems, and he's not talking about that. He's playing this
maybe,
soup game.
Might be, possibly, probably,
Word
likely,
soup
very
game.
likely. None of those meets the extraordinary burden of beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. A moral certainty means a level of confidence so strong, so incredibly unshakable, that you could go home, you would go home, look your loved ones in the eye and say, I am certain. Not probably, not likely. I'm morally certain, and my certainty remains unshakable. The law defines moral certainty as the highest level of certainty known in all human affairs. Think about that. You must be that certain about the entirety, not part of, the entirety of the Commonwealth's case. As we discuss this case, you'll see that the Commonwealth comes nowhere near, nowhere close to reaching that extreme burden of proof. Ladies and gentlemen, on January 28th, 2022, it was a Friday night. John O'Keefe and Karen Reed made plans to meet up with friends, go out for drinks. You saw through video evidence and eyewitnesses that they were affectionate, they were loving, they were in good spirits throughout that evening. They started off at C.F. McCarthy's, which you've heard about, and eventually made their way over to the Waterfall Bar and Grill. When they got there, the Albert family, they were already there, and they were already drinking. The Albert family, it's been established as a very well-known family in Canton. They've got quite the reputation. Brian Albert was at the Waterfall, a longtime Boston police officer. His wife, Nicole Albert, was there. She was with him. His brother, Chris Albert, who was a Canton board selectman, he was there. His wife, Julie Albert, their daughter, Caitlin, and his sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, whom you met, and her husband, Matthew McCabe, whom you did not meet. They were all there drinking before John and before Karen ever arrived. But also present at the Waterfall that night was Brian Albert's friend, Brian Higgins.
So if y'all don't know what a waterfall is, it's the district area. It's like the financial district. That's like the seaport area. It's very expensive there. Very, very expensive there. Like you have to be like I remember when I got a hotel there, I paid like $600 for a hotel a night. You know.
We know that he had a romantic design on Karen. That becomes an incredibly important fact as we discuss the facts of this case. As the bar was closing around midnight, the Alberts invited everybody back to their house. They wanted to keep the night going. But the evidence revealed something interesting, that the invitation to John O'Keefe appears to have been for a different reason, an alternate reason. Think about the video of Brian Higgins and what Michael Proctor in his investigation completely and utterly ignored. Higgins was agitated after a day of drinking, agitated that it was John and not Karen, John with Karen, not him. Recall that ominous text that he sent to Karen with her and John standing just feet away. Well? He got no response. And then we see this. That's what Brian Higgins was confronted with following his well text. What of all things starts going through Brian Higgins' mind? Where does his mind go? What is he thinking about after seeing this, after witnessing this? He shows you. And if Michael Proctor had been the least bit interested, this video would have shown him too. Take a look. Sparring, practicing, fighting techniques. Where was Brian Higgins' mind? What was he thinking about? And then what happens? Before you look at the next video, think about what you're going to see. This next video is after he sees John kiss Karen on the forehead, after he sends that aggressive text to Karen with her standing just feet away. Watch closely, and this is what you're going to see. This is what Michael Proctor and his investigation completely ignored.
Niggas passing on the blame to
Higgins
somebody
is very
else.
clearly
That's
upset.
crazy.
He's agitated. Chris Albert tries to control him. He tries to talk to him, calm him down perhaps. Chris forcefully grabs Higgins' arm. You'll see that in the video that you're about to watch. It appears that Chris is trying to calm him down from something. Brian Albert's standing right there with the other two men, but Brian Higgins is having none of it. He appears to be hyper-focused on one person and one person only, John O'Keefe. In an instant, Higgins angrily jerks his arm away from Chris. Higgins rubs his brow, and he directly gestures at John. A gesture that looks a lot like, let's step outside. Let's go outside. But John looks at him, takes a swig of beer, completely ignores him. Take a look.
As I went through my timeline, I realized that
I think,
I was sexualized. I think 5 years.
I think they're trying to pass on the blame.
I started to experiment.
I can see
with
how
my
that
friends
makes
sexually,
sense.
Guys and girls.
I can see how that shit makes sense where you look at him like, damn, did this motherfucker actually really done it? But I don't think he's that fucking stupid to do that. Take somebody else's car and ran him over. Because if it's like that, maybe we need to look at his car. Was his car hit? Did they... I don't know. It's just, it's weird. It's a weird situation.
Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in this case, had all this footage, but he did nothing. He had access to the exact same thing that you saw. Why did he do nothing? A few minutes later, Higgins then texts John directly. You coming here? 3 question marks. It's now 12:20 a.m. These guys are not good friends. They barely spoke or even acknowledged each other when they walked into the bar together, other than a quick greeting. So why was Higgins coaxing John over to 3450?
So she was probably fucking that other dude. This is why I always tell people all the time, man. Yo, shit does come to light, and sometimes it comes to light at a way that you don't want it to resurface. Like, that's why I was telling people all the time. I was telling the guys, like, yo, I think she did do that shit. I think she had some... I think she told the dude, to like, yo, I need you to get rid of him. I think she was saying that, like, yo, I think this motherfucker needs to get... Yo, we need to sit this motherfucker down, man. You know, he's trying to be in good graces right now, man, but, you know... She was probably like, oh, yeah, I only want to fuck with you and yada, yada, yada. She probably threw him some pussy, sucked his dick and everything, you know. Licked his balls and stuff, and that motherfucker didn't know how to act. That's how certain white people be like, yo, you do that freaky shit to him. Yo, there was this dude that, it's weird, too, because there was this dude that was fucking around with this other girl. Bitch ate the nigga's asshole. Nigga was never the same again. Motherfucker was never the same again. I was like, oh my God. He thought he was in love, you know? So, yeah.
Fairview,
this is probably what happened.
After this? And why not text Karen? Because at that moment, he wasn't interested in Karen. He was interested in John O'Keefe. This is about 5 minutes before John gets out of the SUV and walks toward the house. About 5 minutes before Karen sees him alive for the last time. So what happened inside that house, or that basement, or that garage? What evidence was there for the investigators to look into? What did they ignore? Laceration over John's right eyelid, black eyes, a large dog at the home, an obvious dog bite, on John O'Keefe's right arm, a head injury from falling backward onto a hard surface, alleged surface, a text from Higgins, one of the last people to ever communicate with John O'Keefe. "You come in here?" Those words now echo in the wake of John's death. But Michael Proctor, he didn't listen. When John didn't come back outside, Karen, very oblivious to what had happened, thinking she was just left alone in the car, out in the cold, in the middle of the night, she got frustrated and she drove home. She arrived back at home, and her Wi-Fi connected to John's, her car or phone connected to John's Wi-Fi at 12:36 a.m. It's an important time, 12:36 a.m. She left John voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. He was unresponsive. He didn't pick up a single call. He didn't respond to a single text. The longer he didn't respond, the more upset she got. Her voicemails reflect that frustration after the fact. That's the frustration that you hear in her angry voicemails. She uses harsh words and foul language. She's obviously upset. She's obviously irritated because he didn't come back out of the house and he wasn't responding. But Karen did not know what you know. She didn't know what the investigators should have known. She didn't know what was happening with Higgins and Albert and with her boyfriend, John O'Keefe.
If you own NVIDIA, this could be the most important video you will ever watch, because while millions of investors continue to blindly pile into the stock, they don't see what I see coming.
When he didn't come home at about 5 a.m., Karen went looking for him in a panic. As you know, her worst fears were realized when she found John beaten, battered, bloody, and left in the snow in Brian Albert's front lawn. At 6 a.m., when Karen found John, you heard about the scene. It was described in detail. It was chaos. To use Mr. Brennan's word in his opening statement, it was bedlam. The screams for help by Karen, the yelling and the hollering, ambulances, emergency lights, fire engines, ladder trucks, paramedics, patrol vehicles, patrol officers, all of them swarming all over the lawn just under Brian Albert's bedroom window. And of course, as you learned during the course of this trial, Brian Albert, a sworn peace officer, a first responder trained in being a first responder, never came out of the house. Never went outside to help a fallen fellow officer who was laying on his own property. Never came out. And you learned through the undisputed evidence that the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, for his part, never went into the house. The Commonwealth has struggled to try to prove that John O'Keefe ended up in Brian Albert's front lawn because he was struck by a vehicle. They have failed. They cannot and they will not ever be able to prove that John was struck by a vehicle beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty, because the science does not lie, the medical evidence does not lie, the physics do not lie. Their investigation was flawed from the start because their investigator was corrupted from the start by bias, personal loyalties. Folks, they cannot prove a collision. John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. There was no collision. So let's start there. I want to take a minute to discuss the actual science, the actual physics, and the actual medical evidence that was presented in this case. The science, it's an old saying, is known as the silent witness. It doesn't lie, it doesn't forget, and notably, it doesn't take sides. If there was no collision, what are we doing here? In order for there to be a collision, there has to have been an impact site. The vehicle had to have struck John, period. I want to remind you of some of the most important testimony in the entire case, and it comes from the Commonwealth's own medical expert, Dr. Irini Scortibello, the Commonwealth's medical examiner, someone governed by law to make these decisions. We know that a person struck by a vehicle suffers massive trauma, broken bones, fractures, soft tissue damage, torn ligaments, contusions, soft tissue injury, severe tissue injury, crushing blows. None of that was present with John. None of it. Not anywhere on his body, including his right arm. Not one bruise. Nothing. The fact is, the injuries are not from a vehicle impact. Not his head injury, not those scratch and bite wounds. Not a single medical expert, think about this, not a single medical expert called by the defense or called by the Commonwealth has testified that John was hit by a car. Not one. Think about the irony. Not one. That's not just significant. It's literally the most important point in the entire trial. Listen again to Dr. Scorti-Bello's words. Question. You did not include in your autopsy, in any fashion, any discussion of whether Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with a motor vehicle accident, did you? Answer. No, I did not. She told you, quote, I did not see any evidence of an impact site, end quote. She was talking about John's body. The Commonwealth's own medical examiner, Dr. Scorti-Bello, performed the autopsy. She did it personally. She's the only one to have personally examined John's body, and she found no evidence of an impact site on his entire body. That in and of itself is reasonable doubt. You don't need anything more. The Commonwealth's case is done. It's cooked. Their own experts said there is no evidence of a collision, no evidence of an impact. If you want to know what an impact looks like, take a look at this. This is what a body looks like after being struck by a car at 25 miles an hour. And this is what a car looks like after hitting a person at 25 miles an hour. These are exhibits from Dr. Welcher, the Commonwealth's expert. John didn't even have a bruise. Make no mistake, Dr. Scorti-Bello was presented with the Commonwealth's theory of the case, the same case that you've been presented with, and she refused to conclude that John's death was a homicide. She flatly refused to conclude that there was a collision. And you know who agrees with that? That silent witness, the science, the physics, the data. Dr. Wolf and Dr. Rentschler.
Like, that's cool and everything that he's saying that, but did the scientists say that, like, say what he's saying? That's where we have to get at, like, yo, are you just selling some wolf tickets, my nigga, or do you really believe in this bullshit? You know?
You just met them recently. They explained they were not initially hired by the defense. They were asked by another agency to conduct their analysis. They looked at the evidence from both sides, not taking a side for the defense or the Commonwealth, completely independent.
We get you a prop firm payout guaranteed, and you don't pay us a single penny
That's why I was
you
like,
get paid. Let's face it.
To me, it's weird. Like, this whole case is weird.
The SUV on the one side of the coin, they looked at the injuries to John O'Keefe on the other side of the coin. Both PhDs, both engineers determined there was no collision. I'm not saying it. The science says it. That SUV's taillight was not damaged by striking an arm, and John was not struck by a 6,000-pound SUV. Period. Full stop. Dr. Dan Wolf did the testing on the taillight. Actual testing, not some ridiculous blue paint kindergarten project. He did lab testing. He did field testing. He did data testing. Actual impact force analyses. In every single test at every single speed, the taillight damage was inconsistent with striking an arm. In every test, the taillight damage was inconsistent with damaging the shirt, the sweatshirt. Remember that severe internal damage to Karen Reed's taillight. Not just the outer lens. The internal diffusers were completely smashed, completely shattered. ARCA testing established that all the internal components of every single test taillight, especially the diffusers, remained completely intact. Conversely, on Karen's taillight, the diffusers were almost completely gone. Folks, understand something. If any part of that diffuser portion of the taillight is broken, there is no light. It doesn't illuminate at all. It's just black. Let's take a look at a couple of photos. At 5:07 a.m. at One Meadows, that's the photograph on the left. What do you notice about the right taillight? It's completely illuminated. Later, at 4:12 in the afternoon, photograph on the right. It's lit up. How can that be? How can that be if the Commonwealth claims that those diffusers, the portion that lights up the light, were already scattered all over 34 Fairview? That's their theory. But don't believe your lying eyes. The taillight's completely lit up. That would be impossible. Dr. Andrew Rinchler, a PhD, a biomechanist, explained that at those speeds, the other side of that coin, John's arm would be basically destroyed. Contusions, swelling, torn ligaments, hyperextensions, dislocation of joints and bones, fractured, broken, and shattered. But as you know, John's arm was pristine, save those dog and claw bites. He didn't even have a bruise. Think about this. Think about that photo of those x-rays as you deliberate. You can manipulate a taillight fragment. That's not that hard. You can't manipulate a bruise. If they claim the car was going fast enough to shatter the taillight and shatter the diffusers, then it was also going fast enough to destroy and shatter John's arm, and it simply did not. How do they square that? They don't, and they can't. So they spent nearly $400,000 of taxpayer money to hire someone to dress up and look like John and paint his arm blue, which told you exactly nothing. The ARCA testing, conversely, also established that it is impossible for John's sweatshirt sleeve to be damaged by an impact with the taillight. The Commonwealth's theory is that the sleeve of John's hoodie sweatshirt was damaged by flying shards of taillight slicing through the shirt and through John's arm. I have 3 questions. Number 1, John's arm had about 36 abrasions. How did 36 shards of acrylic go through 9 tiny little puncture holes? How'd that happen? Somebody needs to answer that. Number 2, why are there no slices or cuts in the hoodie? All the defects are punctures. Punctures that you might get from, say, I don't know, canine teeth. And number 3, if the shards cut bloody gouges into John's arm, that's their theory, why is there no blood, no skin, no tissue on a single shard of taillight that they claim came in contact with John's arm? The Commonwealth cannot answer a single one of those questions because John's arm was not impacted by the taillight. It doesn't make sense simply because it didn't happen. Compare and contrast the ARCA experts and their actual testing to Judd Welcher. He came to you in the Commonwealth's case in chief, and he told you that for the better part of $500,000, he'd come in and testify that John was tall enough to touch the taillight with his elbow. That's it. And even in that basic demonstration, he had to lean in to manipulate it to get the results that he wanted. Dr. Welcher then claimed that the reason he didn't do the reconstruction, the actual testing, think about what he said. There isn't enough evidence to determine what happened. I beg your pardon? What happens when there isn't enough evidence, in his words? You vote not guilty. That's what happens. That's out of his mouth, not mine.
Now that I use Monday Service, AI makes solving tickets my form of meditation. Monday Service is a ticketing platform that helps us manage and automate our entire service operations with efficiency and with no code needed. IT, HR, ops, or any other department.
The Commonwealth also used the same company, Aperture, to try to establish a time of a collision that never occurred. The Commonwealth called Shannon Burgess, the supposed expert from Aperture. There is a cardinal sin for experts, folks, a cardinal sin. It's called confirmation bias. It's when you decide to change your opinion to fit a theory. The most important takeaway from Shannon Burgess' testimony was how brazen, how shameless he was in trying to change the data to try to suit the Commonwealth. Remember Mr. Brennan's opening statement. He made some promises to you. He said, this case is about the data. He stressed it over and over again. They've had 3.5 years to get this right. The Commonwealth has had this case for 3.5 years to get it right. So his top expert, Dr. Welcher, prepares a report. And that report says that John O'Keefe was struck by Karen Reed's SUV at 12:31:38. Note that time, 12:31:38. He was struck, he was immediately incapacitated, he was immediately unconscious. So says Judd Welcher and the Commonwealth's theory. But there was a huge, huge problem with that. And somewhere in the middle of trial, somebody must have realized it. They must have realized that the very data they produced unequivocally establishes that they are wrong about a collision. It could not have happened. Why? Because John was interacting with his phone after 12:31:38. Remember, the collision immediately incapacitating. How could he be interacting with his phone afterward? He was on his phone, opening his phone, checking his phone, reading texts on his phone, and locking his phone, all of it, after 12:31:38, which is the time Welcher clocked for the moment of the impact. And he was taking steps and walking with that phone after 12:31:38 also. That's what their own data showed, and it devastated their case, and it devastated that false theory. There must have been panic, I'm guessing, in the room. What do we do now? The data shows John wasn't struck by the car. What do we do?
I'll be back, Reverend.
Enter Shannon Burgess. Question. Can you believe him? Can you believe Mr. Burgess? He came up with a brand new story right in the middle of trial. You might ask yourself, would an expert actually say something he knows not to be true? Would an expert actually say something he knows is not supported by fact? Would an expert shade the truth? You don't have to look any further than Shannon Burgess's CV to answer that question. That was a shame. Even with the pull and push and stretch and manipulation of the time data that Mr. Burgess came in here and told you about, it still shows that John O'Keefe was very much alive and walking around after they claim he was hit and incapacitated. Think about that. Matt DeSogra looked at Burgess's report and told you that in 30 out of 30 scenarios of the possible time skews that Shannon Burgess identified, he came in the middle of trial and identified all these other time skews that he called it. In every single scenario, John was alive and walking after they said he was hit. And that's a problem for them because there was no collision. Just look at Mr. Whiffen's data, Ian Whiffen. John O'Keefe took 31 steps at a steady rate, about 83 feet, and then think about this, in a westerly direction. That would be right toward the house. Remember, it's 78 feet to that garage door. That's not a coincidence. The Commonwealth's witnesses, or the Commonwealth's witness, Mr. Ian Whiffen himself conceded that he has reasonable doubts about the accuracy of John's location data. You remember that question and answer on cross-examination by Mr. Alessi. Do you have doubts? I do. Are those doubts reasonable? They are. And remember, it's still the Commonwealth's burden. If their own cell phone expert has a reasonable doubt about John's location, so should you. John O'Keefe was inside, and the phone battery temperature further proves it. This is not speculation, this is science, and it's irrefutable. It tells us that he was not laying outside in the cold, he was inside somewhere a little bit warmer. Ian Whiffen told you that when the iPhone is exposed to freezing temperatures, think about these numbers. When the iPhone is exposed to freezing temperatures, it will drop from 81 to 21 degrees in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. That's a 60-degree drop in 15 minutes. Now look at John's phone. It was laying, according to the Commonwealth, it was laying directly on frozen ground. He arrived at 34 Fairview and his phone dropped only 20 degrees over the course of an hour. Then inexplicably, it stayed steady. never dropping below 50 degrees for the next 4.5 hours. Never dropping below 50 degrees for the next 4.5 hours, basically through the entire night. He was not outside. He was someplace warmer, like a basement or a garage. Dr. LaPosada confirmed that John O'Keefe did not have hypothermia. No telltale signs, no telltale Wisniewski spots, no frostbite on any extremity. He did not die of hypothermia because he wasn't outside. Dr. Isaac Wolf, Dan Wolf, Elizabeth LaPosada, Judson Welsher, Andrew Rinchler, all agreed. Every expert agreed. This is how John O'Keefe died. A rearward fall from a standing position.
Did you know that you could be generating 10 grand a month or more by simply teaching other people what you already know, extract that into an online course and sell it around the world fast? This is Kerry Eagler. He's generated 7 figures teaching other people e-commerce. And this is Joanna Tompkins. She just had a 30 grand month teaching nail technicians how to get more clients. This is Edward Taylor. He's generated multiple 6 figures teaching visual effects artists around the world how to get better. And this is Paul Martin. He just generated 30 grand inside 3 weeks by pre-selling his course that he hadn't even made to magicians. And what do all these people have in common? Well, they simply decided to turn the expertise that they already had, put that down into an online course and sell it around the world. And from experience, it's the fastest way to generate a lot of revenue without having to do any one-on-one coaching, consulting, done-for-you agency services, any of that stuff. It's much more efficient and fun. And because the most efficient way of teaching people at scale around the world is by simply just creating a digital clone of yourself, of what you already know, recording that into an on-demand course, and then selling it to everyone around the world, around the clock, all the time. And with over 500 clients personally, I know the exact repeatable process that can take you from 0 to 7 figures in pretty much any niche. And in terms of what you could be teaching, I've got clients in niches that range from drumming to yoga, landscape gardening to real estate, anxiety coaching to maths teachers, literally and anything in between. It doesn't matter what you teach. With a repeatable process, you can very quickly extract what you know right now, put it into an online course, get up to 10 grand a month and more very, very fast. So you might be wondering, Carl, that sounds amazing, but what would I teach? How would I know how to sell it and market it? What would I need to do to get started right now? Well, I've just finished up a brand new training and it's going to show you the 5 evolutionary steps that I personally know that you need to go from where you are right now to getting up to 10 grand a month.
What could make you fall straight back like that? Let's just think about that for a second. What could make you fall from a standing position as Judd Welcher just showed us? Standing up, falling straight back. Add a laceration to the right eye consistent with a fist or a punch, and you've got your answer. He certainly didn't sustain that wound on the back of his head by falling backwards onto a lawn. Dr. LaPosada told you that the patterned injury on the back of John's head could only be produced by hitting a hard, ridged, or ledged surface, like a concrete stair or step. What's just through that garage door? Michael Proctor never stepped down in that garage to find out. What a shame. And look at the arm. Just look at John's arm. You don't need the top experts in the country, but you had them. You don't need the top medical minds on the planet on this issue, but you had them. These are dog bites and scratches. These are animal wounds. Not one witness has been called in their trial. Not one. 8 weeks and counting. Not one witness who actually disputes that John O'Keefe's arm injuries are from a dog. The Commonwealth could not find a single medical expert, a single medical witness who would come in here and tell you those are inconsistent with a dog bite or a scratch. And it's equally clear that there was no collision. Dr. LaPosada told you in probably the clearest voice in the entire trial. You remember her testimony. He didn't get hit by a car, in her words. He just didn't get hit by a car. You remember the question that was posed by Mr. Brennan, did you consider the speed of the vehicle? And she said, speed didn't matter because he didn't get hit by a car. She repeated it 3 times because it's true, not just because she says so, but because the medical evidence proves it. The medical science proves it. There was no collision. Dr. Rentschler told you unequivocally and just as firmly he didn't get hit by a car. The Commonwealth has not met their burden. They cannot meet their burden. The Commonwealth hasn't called a single medical professional, not one, to testify that John's wounds came from being hit by a car. Not Dr. Scortibello, not Dr. Isaac Wolf. Contrast that with the caliber and the quality of the experts who came in here to tell you what is obvious to anyone with common sense. Those wounds on his right arm are from a dog. This was not an oversight by the Commonwealth. It's just that there is no one out there. No matter how big a check you write, there's not a medical expert who's going to disagree with that. The fact is, this is the central fact in the case. The only fact that matters is literally uncontested by every medical expert. Uncontested, undisputed. There is no evidence that John was hit by a car. None. How much more reasonable doubt could there be? This case should be over right now. Done. Because there was no collision. So given all that, how did Karen Reed end up sitting here? Why is she even here? Why is she in that chair? Why is she in this courtroom? There is a reason for that. And it's a reason they don't want to tell you, and it's a reality they don't want to admit to. The reason we're here is because the system, the very system that was meant to protect her, that was meant to protect all of us, that system has failed badly. So now let's discuss the facts that were and were not presented by the Commonwealth in this case. Over the next few minutes, I want to talk about the utter failure of the police to investigate this properly and to investigate this fully. And what you're going to see is that Michael Proctor, the lead investigator for the Commonwealth, did nothing to actually and properly investigate this case. Let's start with the house. That's the most logical place to start. I think you'd agree. Brian Albert's house, where John's body was discovered lifeless in the lawn. A man, a police officer, is found dead on the front lawn, and no one secures the scene. No tape, no preservation of evidence, no crime scene log, no search warrants, no consent searches, no photographs of the house interior. They didn't treat the house as a crime scene, and shamefully, they didn't even treat the yard as a crime scene. The lame excuse offered by retired Lieutenant Gallagher, it was really cold and windy, and I didn't know if there was a crime that had been committed. What? You didn't know that a crime had potentially been committed? You have a man laying dead in the yard, and here are the undisputed facts that those officers were confronted with. Black eyes. Obviously, black eyes are consistent with a fight. Bloody nose, also consistent with a fight. Bleeding from the face, consistent with a physical altercation. A cut over the right eye, consistent with a punch. No coat in the freezing cold, not dressed for outside, dressed for inside. And one shoe on. I wonder where the other shoe could be. I don't know, maybe in the house 30 feet away. And then you find a broken and shattered drinking glass next to him, the type of glass that you might find, I don't know, let me think about this, in a kitchen, in a house, 30 feet away. And John's phone was tucked neatly under his back shoulder. Lieutenant Gallagher actually claimed he did not know it was a potential crime that needed investigating. The neighbor across the street, Detective Lieutenant Kelleher, had a ring camera that was pointed at the exact direction where John O'Keefe would have been hit, and nobody bothered to secure it. Nobody bothered to secure it. Nobody even bothered to look at it. Of course this was a potential crime scene. Of course it was. Let's not forget, this was Brian Albert's house, and that comes with privileges. Quote, is the homeowner going to catch any shit? Nope. He's a Boston cop too. End quote. That quote starts to make a little more sense now, doesn't it?
Yo, the motherfuckers got their koofy hats on, bro. Yo, I'm gonna say this. Give me a second. I don't want to hear any of y'all white people say the police don't do. Police always protect and serve. They always protect and serve. I don't want to hear y'all niggas say, y'all funky ass people say, oh yeah, white, y'all niggas ain't complying. Y'all niggas ain't listening to the police. Y'all hate the police. Because you know what? I'm going to say this, Karen Reed, your ass need to go to jail. Because you know what? Black people used to say the same thing for the past 50 years. Niggas was out here stealing coke, stealing money, taking pussy from prostitutes. These police officers have been doing some dirty and nasty shit. All of a sudden, it come to this type of this little funky old fucking mayonnaise eating bitch. Now there's a problem. It's the police. Everybody's the fucking police now. I don't want to hear it now. I think she needs to be in jail.
Michael Proctor wrote those words just hours after John's body was found. He sent this in a private chat, in a private text he never, ever believed would ever be revealed. He sent that text in a series of messages that now belong to you. You weren't given the opportunity to hear from Michael Proctor, but you can read his thoughts for yourself. And I urge you, go read them. They're in Exhibit 209, in case you're wondering. But here are the highlights. Proctor starts the conversation, quote, all the powers that be, one answers ASAP. He's getting pressure, obviously. Get this done. His friend then asks what Proctor's probably thinking at the time. Quote, I assume you guys are out to make it cut and dry since it involves cops. Something stinks. And Proctor responds, yeah.
With Portfolio Analyst by Interactive Brokers, you can consolidate, track, and analyze all your financial...
Cops or niggas having their kufi hats on and shit, because y'all niggas is walking around here Y'all niggas is walking around here right now with these tinfoil hats on, talking about the police planning this nigga to die. And niggas ain't trying to hear that. So,
To the something stinks. And then he goes on, but there will be some serious charges brought on the girl. Think about that. Hours into this investigation, there will be some serious charges brought on the girl. She's a whack job cunt. Yeah, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass. No ass bitch. She's got a leaky balloon knot. Leaks poo. 0 chance she skates. She's fucked. And up to this point, Michael Proctor had done 0 investigation. Nothing. Save talked to a grand total of 3 people, all of whom were named Albert or McCabe. That's it. And this was his mindset. This is the same lead investigator who sent the group chats that you heard about with Sergeant Buchnick. Late night, sitting at his office, rifling through Karen's phone, bragging about looking for naked pictures of her. That text wasn't sent to his buddies or his friends. That text was sent to his supervisors at the Massachusetts State Police, for God's sake. And what was their response? Sergeant Buchanan liked this conduct with a big old thumbs up. He encouraged it. Ladies and gentlemen, a lead investigator is every investigator is supposed to be objective, an objective fact finder. No bias, no agenda. Michael Proctor went far beyond just insulting Karen Reed. He dehumanized this woman. He betrayed her as a human being. He was fired for this blatant bias. If the Massachusetts State Police can't trust him, how can you trust him with this investigation and with your verdict? And with Karen Reed's life. The lead investigator in a murder trial was never called to testify. Think about that. That should stop you in your tracks. Wouldn't you want to hear from Michael Proctor? Wouldn't you want to hear from the lead investigator in the case? Don't you have questions? The Commonwealth did not present their own lead investigator to the jury, the very jury who is charged with judging the investigation. Michael Proctor clearly is radioactive, and the Commonwealth stayed away from it. Michael Proctor is no longer a Massachusetts State Police officer. He wasn't transferred. He didn't go on sabbatical. He didn't retire. He didn't resign. He was fired. He was terminated for cause. The Massachusetts State Police investigated him, found him guilty of dishonorable conduct, not just for those text messages, folks, for sharing confidential information with witnesses and for bias. Not just any bias, bias in this case. Fired. This is the man who touched every single piece of important evidence in this case. All the evidence that was brought before you in this trial went through his hands one way or another. The shirts, the shards. Remember that when Mr. Brennan gets up and gives his closing argument. The shirts, the shards, all in Michael Proctor's possession. Mr. Brennan and the Commonwealth, I think, have pinned their hopes on some microscopic pieces of, or close to microscopic pieces of plastic that were claimed to have been scraped from the hoodie several months after the fact. What he failed to ask every single every single witness is who had access to that shirt and who had access to those taillight fragments, and the answer is it was Michael Proctor. Not for days, not for weeks, for months on end, for months unaccounted for, before they were submitted to the crime lab, before they were ever scraped. Just go look at the chain of custody documents. You've got them. Why didn't Michael Proctor give those clothes to Maureen Hartnett with the crime lab when she was at Canton PD just days after the fact to receive those Solo cups? Remember that? Just a few days later, she was there. She drove up. She did the driving to take the Solo cups in the grocery bag, which has a ridiculous aspect to it in and of itself as well. Why not just give her the shirts as well? Give her the taillight fragments if any were found at that point. Why hold on to them? What could possibly be a reason? Why wait until March to book those into evidence? Now let's talk about some of the other problems with the Commonwealth's evidence. As I indicated, there was no blood, no skin, no tissue, no DNA found on a single piece or shard of the taillight that the Commonwealth claims cut and sliced into John O'Keefe's arm. Where is that trace evidence? Where is that biological evidence? The DNA. Where is it? They've got nothing. Not a single piece that the Commonwealth wants you to believe cut up John's arm. How is that possible? It's not possible. The only way it's possible is if those shards never touched his arm. Because it was a dog. Oh, and the one sample of DNA that they did find, by the way, was found on the outer, smooth part of the housing. Not any shard. It was the outer, smooth part of the housing. Nothing that they claim actually came in contact with John O'Keefe. Number two, that sample had DNA of two other men, two other unidentified males. That tells you that that DNA had nothing to do with a car strike. That DNA would be expected to be, John's DNA would be expected to be all over that car. Inside, outside, he had access to that car for months and months and months. He was in and out of it all the time. Show me some blood, then we'll talk. They can't, and they won't because it doesn't exist. That SUV never hit John. The hair found on the bumper. The Commonwealth really stretched its own credibility on this one. That magic little hair on the SUV supposedly survived a 37-mile drive in 47-mile-an-hour winds. But that little magic hair just clung there, just hung on. That same hair that moved in between photos in the Sally Port. Remember that? There were two photos taken, and it was either the breath of the photographer or just the movement of walking by the hair. It literally moved between the two photographs. But that hair is supposed to have hung on in a 37-mile drive in a blizzard? The only thing that hair proves that the Commonwealth is embarrassingly grasping at straws. That hair has nothing to do with anything. But it doesn't stop there. There was another revelation at trial, a big one, a huge one, and it came from a very unlikely source. Christina Hanley, the quiet, reserved criminalist who told you something the Commonwealth likely did not want revealed because it's devastating to their case. Absolutely devastating. And it's this. The glass on the bumper didn't match the cocktail glass. None of it. Remember, February 11th, Michael Proctor, without any other person with him, no witness, no supervisor, no other person with him, claims to have found a single piece of glass at the scene. February 11th, single piece of glass, Michael Proctor. Keep that in mind. Interestingly, the glass on the bumper that didn't match the cocktail glass, one piece did match one other thing. The Proctor glass. Those two go together. The only two things that go together from that bumper are the Proctor glass. We know that there's no glass in the taillight. We know that nothing else was shattered on the vehicle. Therefore, that glass had to be placed there. Didn't come from a crash. Didn't come from a cocktail glass. So how did it get sprinkled on the back of the bumper? Whose proverbial fingerprints are on that glass on the bumper? The only thing it matched was Michael Proctor. What about the Ford Edge and that snowplow driver, Brian Loughran? He observed that Ford Edge parked outside Brian Albert's house at 3:30 a.m. That vehicle was moved directly in front of where John's body was found sometime between 2:30 and 3:30 in the morning. The only person connected to a car of that make and model, Brian Albert. Michael Proctor did nothing to investigate that point. Did nothing to investigate whose Ford Edge was parked in a spot specifically to block the line of sight in the exact position where John's body would be later found by Karen Reed. No one, not Michael Proctor or anybody else, checked it for evidence. No one even asked any questions about it. That Ford Edge, Brian Albert's Ford Edge, completely ignored. Michael Proctor failed to interview obvious witnesses in this case. Why? Why didn't he want to speak to the snowplow driver, Brian Loughran? Why did he falsely claim that no one plowed the roadway that morning? When police dash cam video, you saw the dash cam, it shows plows going back and forth all morning. Why did he wait so long, years even, to interview Heather Maxson and Ryan Nagel, individuals who were literally outside 34 Fairview at the exact same time John and Karen arrived at Brian Albert's house that night? Brian Loughran, had he been investigated or interviewed, would have told Michael Proctor that he drove past the lawn multiple times on January 29th, and there was no body on the lawn. He would have had a perfect view. Remember, the weatherman told you there was only enough snow at that time. I think he said, in a very charming phrase, only enough snow to track a cat. I think that was it. There was no body there. Heather Maxson and Ryan Nagel would have told him that they arrived at 34 Fairview shortly after Karen and John pulled up behind them, and they would have told Michael Proctor, at least Heather would have told Michael Proctor, that when she left 10 minutes later, she drove past the SUV and observed Karen Reed in the driver's side, dome light on, passenger seat empty. So where was John? He wasn't outside, wasn't sitting down, wasn't laying down. There's only one place he could be. We could all say it together if you could talk with me. He was in the house. But Michael Proctor did not want to have those answers. He did not want to have to disclose those answers. He didn't want the truth. The Commonwealth has presented a shred of evidence of when Karen Reed consumed her last drink that night. Think about that. That's critical information that the Commonwealth has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. They have to prove when her last drink was that night. They have to prove it. We don't have to prove or disprove anything. Every single witness who was asked and who had an opportunity to observe Karen that night said the same thing. She wasn't drunk, she wasn't stumbling, she wasn't slurring her words. She was, in the words of Ms. Kolakithis, completely normal. Even Jennifer McCabe grudgingly had to admit that fact. It's on video. Instead, they used Yuri Buchanan, to try to come into court and count sips of alcohol, which he admittedly got wrong. According to Ian Whiffen, the Commonwealth's own expert, the location data, using location data on John's phone, showed Karen driving lawfully, she was driving safely, she was under the speed limit, she was slowing and stopping at stop signs, slowing around corners. And Ryan Nagel corroborated that when he saw her make that left-hand turn onto Fairview. The Commonwealth has an incredibly high burden to prove that Karen was driving under the influence. They have failed to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty, because it depends on when she had her last drink. What happened after she got home and she was upset with John for not coming back out of the house? That would answer that question. As you well know, no one searched the house for signs of a struggle. Not that night, not the next day. I'm talking about 34 Fairview. Not ever. Not once. Not with a warrant, not with consent. They never went into the basement, the stairwells. They didn't look at the walls. They didn't look in the garage. Nothing was ever examined. Nothing was checked for blood. Nothing was checked for DNA. They didn't look for a ledged or ridged surface. Zero. You'll remember how surprised Jennifer McCabe was to recall that there was a garage door even on the house. Except this was her sister's house. She's been going to that house since she was 5. She's seen that house. She's been in and out of that house hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. She's been going to that house her entire life, and yet she acted surprised when I asked her about it. Remember Jennifer McCabe's answer when I asked her whether there was a door at the garage. I was asking her about the front door, the side door, and the garage door, and her answer was, oh, actually there is a garage door right there. Investigators never opened that door. Let's change the scenario. What if it wasn't the house of a Boston cop? What if it wasn't the house of Brian Albert? We can be certain that investigators would have torn that house apart to get answers about why a fellow police officer was laying dead on the homeowner's lawn. You can betcha.
JetBlue makes your fare fly further. With low prices.
But because this was Brian Albert's house, a Boston cop, nope. And because he was a fellow cop, an insider, they didn't even open the door. That is not justice, folks. That's just pure favoritism. Each of these facts is more than a question mark. They're failures of duty. They're blank spots on a map where justice is supposed to live. And every single one is a reason why you cannot convict Karen Read. Reasonable doubt abounds. If the Commonwealth failed to investigate every reasonable alternative, how dare they come in here and ask you for a verdict? They didn't investigate the case fully, and yet they're asking you to take the easy road and do their job for them. These facts do not represent reasonable doubt. Nothing does. Every one of these facts that you're seeing that we're talking about represents reasonable doubt. Every one. The police.
He's kind of slacking on
Police and the prosecution are in a position in suspicious late-night visit to the Canton Police Department.
All right, we're gonna end this one right here. He did all right. I'm not even gonna lie. He did actually good. I still think she did it. Now we're gonna see the prosecutor. See him get busy.
John O'Keefe was 46 years old. 46 years old. He spent his life helping people. He's described as a good man, kind, generous, thoughtful. He was a Boston police officer. He worked to help the community. Everything you've heard about this man, he was a good man. He helped people. When his niece and nephew had nobody, he took them in. He took them in. John O'Keefe seemed to be the type of person who would help anybody at any time. And on January 29, 2022, John O'Keefe needed some help. He needed help from somebody else. You see, John O'Keefe had just been hit by Karen Reed in front of 34 Fairview Road, and he lay on the ground dying. And he needed help. Someone to reach out a hand, someone to knock on a door, someone to make a phone call to 911, even anonymously. Not take responsibility, just to help. And there was only one person in this entire planet who could help him that morning, to give him a chance. Maybe it was a 33% chance if he met the Isaac Wolf of the world. But to give him a chance. And that one person who could help him that morning was this defendant right here, Karen Reed. And she made a decision. In her Lexus with the shattered taillight, debris field all over the front yard, and John O'Keefe lying helpless like a child on the front yard. She made a choice. She didn't call 911. She didn't run to his aid. She didn't knock on a door. She made a decision about herself. In her Lexus, she drove away. She was drunk. She hit him, and she left him to die. She was drunk. She hit him, and she left him to die. Before I go through and detail the evidence, let's talk a little bit about the evidence as a whole. She was drunk. She was drinking that night. She was drinking at McCarthy's with John. She was drinking at the waterfall. Her blood was taken with samples of a retrograde analysis, almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. She was drunk. She hit him. The timeline in this case is beyond dispute. You can accuse, assault, characterize, malign, twist. The timeline doesn't change. It is data. Data is data. The black box, the forensics from the SD card, we know exactly step by step where they were. We know in that window she hits him because he never moves again. His healthcare data.
Shit, man.
The temperature on the battery of the cell phone. The physical evidence, the debris field, the DNA, the hair. And then she left him to die.
She did that shit.
He had a basal skull fracture, counter coup. You heard all about it when the back of your head hits the ground and the brain comes forward. Dr. Wolf told us the reason why they have level 1 trauma centers around the country is because people can survive this injury if they get help. That's why they have this care. That's why they have these hospitals. But you gotta get help. You gotta get help. And if you don't, you develop symptoms, ecchymosis, raccoon eyes, your brain swells, and you die. She was drunk. And that night was a recipe for disaster. But before we get to the drinking, in some ways, the fate of this night was sealed well before that night, because John O'Keefe and Karen Reed were in a toxic relationship. This relationship was crumbling. We hear lovey-dovey, and it was crumbling, and we know it. And we know it because a month before, his niece Kaylee talks about when they went to Aruba. It should have been a wonderful event. It was discord. It was fighting. It was aggravation. And when they got back, the discontent was palpable. Miss Reed reaches out to Brian Higgins, text messaging. John O'Keefe, the relationship is crumbling. And you heard a little bit about what that relationship was like. Kaylee, his niece, told you, when there was an argument, John would do what John does. He would walk away. She described for you one time, to get away from the scene, he walked into his bedroom. but the defendant wouldn't let it go, pounding on his door, having to get the last word, never letting go of the fight. Kind of mirrors what happens on January 29, 2022. And maybe outward appearance, they got along. Maybe sometimes quietly they got along. But behind closed doors, relationships have up and downs. We have a bird's eye view into the relationship on January 28, 2022, because we have the text messages, not so lovey-dovey. The relationship is almost over. The tensions are simmering beneath the surface. They are not getting along. She believes Mr. Keefe is already halfway out of the relationship and he's not into it anymore. You will read them, you saw them. This relationship was unstable and at its end. And so fast forward that night. That night, after this discord, after the arguing, they go out and what do? They drink. And they drink a lot. So Keefe drinks a lot, and Karen Reed drinks a lot. You've seen the McCarthy videos. You can call it 6, 7, 8, whatever you want to call it. You can see the shots into the mixed drinks. More shots into mixed drinks. Count them yourself. Over a half dozen mixed drinks in just a few hours. Sober? And then at the waterfall, a shot, a mixed drink. Now, it was brought up the waterfall that there was some type of discord between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. They knew each other. They were friends. Brian Higgins' conduct of speaking to Karen Reed was not honorable. It's not. But they were friendly. There was no adversarial relationship. There was no anger between them. What we heard is they barely greeted each other. Could we have slide 1, please? At the Waterfall Bar, when you see John O'Keefe come in, here's him barely greeting him. That's him and Mr. Higgins. Barely greeting each other. Reality sometimes is different than argument. This is a celebratory mood. Take that down, please. Celebratory mood. A bunch of friends. They're playing around. They're hugging. They're grappling. This is a fighting technique for a murder 2 hours later. Is that the story? They're practicing their moves to murder John O'Keefe. In this celebratory mood, you don't see any aggravation or animus between Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe. Inevitably, the next morning, Karen Reed is brought to the hospital and they take her blood. Now, the government doesn't have to prove that she was drunk. It is either that she's over the legal limit, 0.08, or she had enough alcohol to affect her ability to operate a motor vehicle safely, but you will know that she was far beyond the legal limit. After the retrograde analysis, almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. Almost 2 to 3 times the legal limit. Now, it's been intimated, not come out and said, that maybe she went home and started drinking after she got home. No evidence, mind you, no evidence. And that somehow that is why she had a high blood alcohol level. It's not appropriate for me to comment on the credibility of another attorney's argument, so I won't do that. But Karen Reed will do that for her. So if we listen to slide 2, she'll tell you exactly what she thinks about that claim.
My alcohol intake's probably about 5 or 6 or 4. The drinks that they were pouring me at McCarthy's, which is where I consumed most of the alcohol, was the weakest spot in time. It tasted just like old soda water with lime.
Slide 3, please.
I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway. I wouldn't have gotten on the expressway at 12:15 or 29. I mean, it was quiet. The roads were very quiet. You can see on the videos. And I was going, when I've had a few drinks and I drive, I always drive extra slow. And I go my Like, my alerts aren't as sharp as they should be. But I shouldn't be driving.
Thank you.
Download the Kayak app to search and compare prices on flights, cars, and hotels from hundreds of travel sites. Then do it.
You think she drank when she got home? When they leave the waterfall bar at 12:12, you see a video, you have it in evidence, there's a still photo of John O'Keefe holding a glass. Not from the Albert's home. He didn't sneak into the house in the cupboards and grab a glass. From the waterfall, you see him with a glass, and in it is a straw. Take a look at that picture. And now from 12:12 on, we virtually have a historian in the data that tells us exactly where he went, exactly step by step where he went. And how do we have that? Well, we know the defendant's car had like a black box, and Judd Welcher, Dr. Judd Welcher, took the data from the black box and downloaded it so you can see the movements and the triggering events. And then Shannon Burgess, well, you don't like what he says, don't attack the data, attack the man. He can be mocked for his LinkedIn profile or his unupdated CV. But what he did is he found a key, critical piece of this case that did not exist before. He found it recently. And it was that SD card. The SD card that everybody missed, including the defense expert. Everybody missed it. So as much as you want to make fun of him, Shannon Welcher found the key so that we could have the time and date and location coordinated for an impenetrable timeline that can't be broken. That's what Shannon Burgess did. And so we know on the way from the waterfall to 34 Fairview, Ms. Reed is driving drunk. Mr. O'Keefe is in the passenger side of the car, and they're heading their way to 34 Fairview, and they get lost. And now we have more data because John O'Keefe has a cell phone. And I said it in the beginning, it is a historian. It doesn't suffer from bias, it doesn't suffer from prejudice, it doesn't suffer from memory loss. It has data on it. And he puts on Waze, high location data, as Ian Whiff would say. And it tells you second by second the speed, the location, the movement. That's what it does. And he has healthcare data on that phone. The healthcare data separately shows his movement. And that is critical. It is critical because it not only shows his movement, it shows when he does not move. That healthcare data is critical. And it's not subject to bias. It's not in dispute. There's no other contrary evidence. It is data. On the way to 34 Fairview, alcohol fuels tension. We know that. And we know from those text messages the tension in that relationship, and then there's a trigger. There is a trigger on the way because they're lost, and when John O'Keefe calls Jen McCabe for directions, Jen McCabe says something that triggers what's going to happen next. Could I have slide 4, please?
Very close to the Alberts. In fact, when Jen was navigating John to the Alberts when I was driving, she said it's near Ashley's house. Ashley and John had hooked up prior to John and I dating.
And so as they travel to 34 Fairview, under the duress of this crumbling relationship, fueled by intoxication, we have triggers. Now, we know on their way there, we know from the data, where they went, how they moved. If we look at slide 5, Ian Whiffen showed you a guide. You could enlarge that just a little, please. And it shows you with the healthcare data, it registers as flights climb, but it doesn't mean someone's climbing upstairs. What it means is there's an elevation, and he breaks down the data, the red, the green, if you could move down, please, Ms. Gomez. And then the bottom left, that's 34 Fairview. You can see, second by second, the circles of their route, even the 3-point turn on Cedar Crest. That's what you see. At that point, they've left the bar. Remember, the battery temperature was 82 degrees. They're now in a car. It's now 77 degrees. Think about how accurate the battery temperature is, that it reflects the difference between being in a bar and being in a car. They take a three-point turn at Cedar Crest. And because of Shannon Burgess and because of Judd Welcher, we have the data, and it's a triggering event. Remember, if there's an acceleration past 30%, it registers data on the car, and that's exactly what happens. Is a three-point turn, and it all lines up with the cell phone after you synchronize the times. It's that simple. It's nothing complicated. There's nothing tricky. There's nothing devious about it. It's data. They do the three-point turn, and you can match the cell phone clock with the Lexus clock, and when you do, you can reconcile the difference. Now, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of argument, a lot of fights. Shannon Burgess says 21 to 29 seconds. Mr. DeSorga comes in. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to actually do anything. He wasn't given the invitation to test the data. He just looked at the report and made criticisms like a Monday morning quarterback. But even he, looking at the data, says, well, it's 3 seconds off or 2 seconds. Same window, same time. We can have all the arguments we want. They're there, they're together. The data matches up perfectly, perfectly. And so they make their way down to 34 Fairview Road. They don't stop. They don't stop at the driveway. They don't stop. And John O'Keefe gets out of the car. They go to the flagpole, and we know for two reasons. One, the data. And secondly, Mr. Nagel and Ms. Mason at Cedar Crest, at that intersection before it goes down to the right, they meet. They let Karen Reed go first. They fall behind in the truck. Now, at this point, Mr. O'Keefe has about 8 more minutes before the beginning of the end of his life. And he's in that car. He's in that car for most of it. Because Ms. Mason and Mr. Nagel don't see anybody get out of the truck. Nobody crosses the lawn. Nobody goes to a garage. Not just because they didn't see it. They didn't. Not because they didn't see it. Because the healthcare data on the phone shows that John O'Keefe is not moving. The car is stopped at the flagpole. The healthcare data stops. The battery stays at 77 degrees. The data is the data. You can't change it as much as you want to. It's data. And they sit at that flagpole.
Whether you're a team of 1 or a full crew, I'm going to show you exactly how to create scroll-stopping TikTok ads in under 15 minutes. And to do this,
for minutes. It's 12, 24, 33 when they get there. They're there past 12:30. Remember, Ms. Mason and Mr. Nagel said they were there about 5 minutes and then they go. It's not exact, but about 5 minutes they said. So there's about 2 minutes left for John O'Keefe. And what are they doing in those 2 minutes? What are the last 2 minutes of his life that he can remember that would be open to him? They're arguing. They're arguing. They're arguing. And we know they're arguing because Miss Reed tells us through first responder Becker. She was sad. Remember, he sees her in the back of the ambulance and he's trying to calm her down? She was sad because her last moments were arguing. They're in an argument. That's why they're not going in the house. But John O'Keefe decides to get out of the car, and we know because the dome light goes on. That's what happens when you open a door. Whether he's bent down, he's standing outside, or on the other side, the dome light is on. And then you see the data. John O'Keefe begins to move. 12:31:56. It's the first time he has moved since they got to the flagpole, and it will be the last time he moves in his life. And he moves for 20 seconds. Ian Whiffen said that the satellites, they move, they reconnect, they pull information. He's no longer on high-frequency data because waves are shut off. Now it's more random. It's low frequency. We would never suggest, and Mr. Whiffen did not claim, based on location data alone at that point, you can tell exactly where John O'Keefe is. What he said is it was readings all night. The bullet is always near the flagpole. That doesn't mean he was always near the flagpole. He could have moved. He could have moved in the circles and come back. Location data is consistent with him never leaving the flagpole. But that in itself is not enough. But there's more. There is more. There is the healthcare data. There is the temperature of the cell phone battery. And so he moves for 20 seconds. It turns west. It does not say he walks to the house. That's not what the data says. It doesn't say that he goes straight line and he walks over to the door. In fact, could he even get to the door in 75 feet? Could he get there? Because when the investigator for the defense testified, he measures from the driveway. They never stopped at the driveway. He never measures from the flagpole. He never measures from the flagpole to the garage door. So this fantasy that somehow he walked in the garage, even though there's no evidence, there's no witness, there's no data. 20 seconds of his life, and he moves. And healthcare data registers his steps. It could be pacing, it could be a straight line, it could be.
So everyone, we're gonna finish tomorrow. Have a great night. We'll be waking up. We'll be doing this in another 4 or 5 hours. All right. I'm falling asleep. I don't want to fall asleep, but yeah, I do want to.